You've been taught that to succeed, you have to chase. Chase love, chase respect, chase validation. But have you ever noticed that the more you chase, the further everything seems to run? You chase people and they lose interest. You chase happiness and it slips through your fingers. You chase peace and somehow life gives you more chaos. You keep wondering what's wrong with you, why the harder you try to be good enough, the more invisible you feel. But maybe nothing's wrong with you. Maybe you've just been living your entire life backwards. Nietzsche once wrote that the will to power is not about dominating others, it's about mastering yourself. To live from strength rather than from desperation. Yet most people live in quiet desperation, chasing what they think they lack rather than realizing the truth. The one who chases is always beneath the one who is chased. This is not about arrogance or pride, it's about energy. When you stop being available to everyone, when you stop begging life to notice you, you create tension. And in that tension, attraction is born. Think of the sun. It doesn't move toward the planets. It pulls them in by the sheer gravity of what it is. That's power. Most people spend their lives trying to be liked. They bend, they adapt, they shrink themselves, hoping someone will finally say, "You're enough." But Nietzsche would tell you this is the behavior of the slave, not the creator. The slave reacts. The creator acts. The slave waits for permission. The creator gives it to himself. The slave chases. The creator attracts. You are not meant to crawl for love or chase after meaning. You are meant to stand so firmly in who you are that the world cannot help but adjust around you. But here's the uncomfortable truth. The moment you stop chasing, you'll lose people. You'll lose comfort. You'll lose the illusion that life owes you something. When you stop over-explaining yourself, people who fed on your energy will leave. When you stop proving your worth, those who depended on your insecurity will turn against you. That's when the silence begins. And that silence will feel like death. But it's not death. It's rebirth. It's what Nietzsche called the death of the old self, the crumbling of the illusions that kept you small. You are not dying. You are being born without permission.
Carl Jung once said that until you make the unconscious conscious, it will rule your life, and you will call it fate. That's why you keep attracting the same people, the same disappointments, the same pain. You think you're unlucky, but really, you're repeating patterns you haven't yet confronted. When you chase, you tell the universe that you are not enough. You broadcast lack. You attract more of it. But when you stop, when you finally stand still and let the silence speak, you'll begin to see your real reflection. Not the one shaped by others' opinions, but the one that has been buried under years of pleasing, performing, and pretending. That's where the real power begins. In ancient Greece, there was a concept called ataraxia, inner stillness. It meant reaching a state so centered that the chaos of the world couldn't shake you. Plato believed that such stillness was the highest form of wisdom, to be unmoved in a world that never stops moving. Today, most people confuse motion with purpose. They confuse busyness with meaning. They think they're chasing success, but what they're really doing is running from stillness. Because stillness forces you to meet yourself, the self you've been avoiding. When you stop chasing, you meet your shadows. The loneliness, the fear, the parts of you that whisper, without attention, you are nothing. But here's where transformation happens. Because when you stop giving those voices your energy, they start to die. And what replaces them is power. Not the kind that controls others, but the kind that controls yourself. That's what Nietzsche meant when he spoke of becoming the Übermensch, the higher man. Not superior by birth or status, but by consciousness. When you stop being ruled by your impulses, your fears, your need to be seen, you become the one who sees.
It's easy to talk about power when everything is going your way. But true power is built in solitude, in the quiet mornings where no one claps for you, and the nights when you wonder if you've made a mistake. When you could chase, but you choose stillness instead. Because stillness is not weakness, it's the seed of transformation. Bonhoeffer, the German theologian who resisted the Nazis, wrote from his prison cell, "Freedom is not something we have, but something we become." Even in captivity, he understood what most people never will, that real freedom begins when you no longer depend on external validation to define your worth. Imagine this. You stop texting first. You stop explaining yourself. You stop forcing what isn't flowing. And suddenly, you begin to feel the power return to your chest. That's the moment life starts to chase you. Opportunities appear out of nowhere. People begin to respect you differently. Not because you became someone new, but because you remembered who you were before the world taught you to beg. But let's go deeper. Why do we chase in the first place? Because we're terrified of being nothing. Nietzsche once said, "Man would rather will nothingness than not will at all." We'd rather chase illusions than face the void of our own uncertainty. But that void, that terrifying nothingness, is not our enemy. It's the birthplace of creation. Every artist, every thinker, every visionary had to enter that void, to stand in the silence between who they were and who they might become. And only those who dared to stop chasing, to stop filling the silence with noise, ever found something real.
Machiavelli once wrote that fortune favors the bold. But what most forget is that in his philosophy, boldness wasn't about reckless action. It was about the refusal to be passive, to act from cower, not from fear. And that's what happens when you stop chasing. You stop acting from fear. The fear of being alone, the fear of being unseen, the fear of not being enough. When those fears lose their grip, your presence changes. You no longer walk into rooms trying to be noticed. You walk in as if you already belong there, because you do. You start to realize something profound. Everything you were chasing was already within you. The peace, the love, the validation. It was all waiting for you to stop running long enough to notice. And when you do, the game changes. Life begins to move differently. People treat you differently, not because they changed, but because you did. You've shifted from begging to becoming, from chasing to attracting, from surviving to creating. So stop. Stop chasing what is running from you. Stop explaining your worth to those committed to misunderstanding it. Stop searching for mirrors that only distort your reflection. Stand still. Breathe. Look around. Life doesn't begin when you get everything you want. It begins the moment you stop running from who you are. Because when you finally stop chasing, life starts to chase you. And when that happens, you'll realize what Nietzsche meant all along. That the highest form of power is not control over the world, but mastery over yourself.